So in today's video, I wanted to get into interesting things that Tom Brady had to say recently. Stephen A. Smith had Tom Brady on his show recently, and that was a big W for the show. Like I have to admit, that was big time. Whether you like Stephen A. or not, he's doing big things, for sure. So I don't see any bigger guest that you can have really like in the sports world, other than maybe like MJ or like a few other people, but Tom Brady's definitely a W. So I wanted to get into some of the comments that he made, and let's go ahead and get in first, and then I want to react to it. But let's go ahead and start with that. He made like comments on today's league, saying basically implying that it was softer, and which a lot of people agree with. I kind of agree with, in a way. But let's go ahead and get into it real quick.
I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. Yeah. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past.
Why not?
Why
not? Why do you think that is?
I think the coaching isn't as good as it was. I don't think the development of young players is as good as it was. I don't think the schemes.
Okay, so let me stop. Let me stop right there. So I could kind of get where he's going with this, but like as far as developing players and stuff like that. But I feel like in today's game we have like a lot of good sports coach. We have a lot of good NFL coaches right now. If you look at Sean McVay, if you look at Kyle Shanahan, and then you look at guys like Mike McDaniel. Like I feel like the coaching is, it's actually improving. But let me say this real quick before I move on. I just want you guys to remember that there was this guy named Michael Jordan, excellent guy. Excellent. Obviously, one of the best athletes ever, best basketball player. In case you don't remember, and I'm a LeBron fan too as well. But how good was he at picking players? How good was he at? So just because you're the GOAT doesn't necessarily mean that you're always right. I just wanted to make that clear. But as far as like football knowledge, there's no better person to get knowledge from than Tom Brady. I feel like, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to be right. Okay, let's go ahead and continue.
Are as good as they were. I think the rules have allowed a lot of bad habits to get into the actual performance of the game. Mm-hmm. So I just think the product, in my opinion, is less than what it's been. I think guys are competitive. Guys play hard. I look at a lot of players like Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison and Ronnie Lott, and guys that impacted the game in a certain way, and every hit they would have made would have been a penalty. And I your coaches complaining about their own player being tackled, and not necessarily, why don't they talk to their player about how to protect himself, how to get rid of the ball, how to throw it, how to run out of bounds, how to get down, how to lower your pad level. We used to work on the fundamentals of those things all the time. Now they're trying to be regulated all the time. I think the offensive players need to protect themselves. It's not up to the defensive player to protect the offensive player. A defensive player needs to protect himself. You shouldn't ask them.
I agree with that, but at the same time, I feel like Tom Brady did benefit a lot from, and I know Shannon Sharp, I didn't really watch the video yet, but I know he mentioned that as well, but I agree that I think that he does benefit. I've always thought that he does benefit from today's game, even though he started in 2000, like the year 2000, where like it was still a pretty rough game. And I'm not saying football's light at all. Like football's still a really rough game, but back then in 2000, he did start in the rough era, and then rules started to change to protect the quarterbacks. I have no problem with that though. But it's just interesting coming from him, who benefited from, a lot of the rule changes.
Offensive player to protect him. I think a lot of the way that the rules have come into play have allowed this. You can essentially play carefree, and then if anyone hits you hard, there's a penalty. And it's very different than how I played. I didn't throw the ball to certain areas because I was afraid players were going to get knocked out.
Mm-hmm. That I respect. I respect that. The fact that Brady didn't leave his receivers out hanging, because like a lot of quarterbacks, like the younger quarterbacks, but Brady knows better than ever, how to not leave your receivers out to dry. So, but the fact that he actually had to put that in his game plan, that's respect right there.
It's the reality. Wow. I didn't throw it to the middle when I played Ray Lewis because you knock him out of the game, and I couldn't afford to lose a good player. So guys like that, the only way to beat skill was physicality.
Yeah. So I agree with that. There's a lot of big nuggets of information there that, like I said, just because you're the good doesn't mean you're right about everything. There's, if you watch like the best GMs in sports, Michael Jordan or whoever, and sometimes the best GMs in sports are the ones that have never played the game. So you don't necessarily just because you haven't played the game doesn't mean don't know what you're talking about as well. And just because you have played the game doesn't mean you're always right, even if you're the GOAT. So I wanted to get into what Brady had to say about the Patriots. I found this very interesting. Let's go ahead and get into this real quick.
Ask you about this transition into football. What has it been like for you watching this year's version of the New England Patriots, your former team, struggle the way that it has struggled? 2-8 on the season, Mac Jones being screamed at by, Bill O'Brien. I mean, I've seen you argue with Bill O'Brien before, so that's nothing new, but I've never seen that. It was just a bad look for Mac Jones, make no mistake about it. What has that been like for you watching the New England Patriots this year and the way they've struggled?
I think it's hard to see a team struggle that you care about, so many of the people involved. I would say this: football is a hard sport, and I think it speaks to when the teams do put it all together and they do a lot of the things the right way, and you see this sustained success like the Niners did in the 90s, like we were able to do, like the Cowboys were in the 70s, and the 90s too. The Buffalo Bills, even though they lost, when you do things the right way, you're rewarded for it. And when things aren't necessarily the right way, it's hard to win. And they have a lot of pieces in New England that do things the right way, but the margin of error is super slim.
Right.
One pass, one catch, one interception, one tackle. Winning football games in the NFL is hard. And
okay, so I mean that's a good point. I also wanted to say this though, as far as I'm impressed with the young quarterbacks that I've seen. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, Justin Herbert, because he talked about the development of young players, and I'm seeing I don't know. I'm impressed with the new quarterbacks. I feel like we haven't dropped off a bit because obviously, we lost Tom Brady, we lost Peyton Manning. Rodgers is still in the league. We have Trevor Lawrence. I'm excited to watch him. He's been doing really well. Tua, he's not one of the best, but I feel like he's looking really good with Tyreek. So we have a lot of good quarterbacks, in the league now, I feel like. And then Tom Brady, and another thing I wanted to say about this, though, what he just said is that I know there's a part of Tom Brady that's he doesn't want the Patriots to to look really good without him, you know what I mean? And that's everybody. That's me. I'd feel the same way. I mean, obviously he's not going to say that live, but I'd be the same way. When I leave a team, I want you guys to be worse off than when I left, because I don't want it to look like I was the problem. You know what I mean? So Tom Brady left, and New England was trash. Now, don't get me wrong, he left at a good time. If you look at the time when Bill Belichik was, because remember Bill Belichik played without Brady, with the old teams, with Matt Castle and Jimmy Garoppolo, and they still looked pretty decent. They didn't fall off a cliff. So Tom Brady left around the time when New England was declining, and that's more of a Bill Belichick personnel standpoint. He's just terrible at picking players, so I think that's a bigger issue that needs to be addressed. I feel like Robert Kraft would probably go after a younger coach nowadays. He just strikes me as that type of person that he's always going to go with smarter, smart people. He's always going to hire the right people, and I feel like he's going to give a young coach a chance. But I feel like it's better. I feel like the problem is just Bill Belichick as the GM. Stephen A. and other people say, you just got to give up the role as GM and just focus on your defense. I feel like that's the key. And then I wanted to get into one last thing that they were talking about. This is Tom Brady speaking about Bill Belichick specifically as his coach. Let's go ahead and hear what he had to say about his former coach, Bill Belichick.
Am I off kilter when I said this? Because I've said this publicly. I certainly would never advocate that Bill Belichick be gone. He's the greatest coach, arguably the greatest coach to have ever lived, and there is no debating that. What I have said, however, is that just like you thought it was time for you to move on, it may come a point where Bill Belichick thinks it's time for him to move on to something new and for New England to start anew, because the era of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick has passed. Am I off kilter, or are any of us off kilter in your mind when we say something like that?
I think he's an incredible coach. He's the best coach, in my belief, in the history of the game. So, I mean, I don't know. That's
huge right there. That says a lot. So the fact that Brady has that much respect for For Bill Belichick, when Belichick really, it's almost like he didn't have nearly the same respect for Brady, even though he says that Brady's the GOAT. I mean, still, I feel like he could have done a better job. Obviously, like taking him out to dinner, golfing, having a better relationship. Just being a better leader in general in that relationship. So, part of me is like really glad that Brady did go off. Like he went to Tampa Bay. Even though they had like really good pieces around him and a great defense, but still he did this thing, he won a championship, so I have a lot of respect for that.
The thought of him not being in New England is hard for me to think about.
Wow.
So I think he prepares the team really well. And ultimately, you got to have a lot of people around you to succeed. You got to have a lot of things in place for the organization to be successful. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's probably coaching much difference now than when we were undefeated in 2007.
Right.
I'm sure he's preparing the team the same way. The results are different, but again, that's why the sport's so challenging. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of reasons why teams win or lose. The head coach is a very small part on game day.
Yes.
The quarterback plays a really big part on game day. Not the entire thing, but because you touch the ball,
I love that he said that, by the way, because we've always had this image of Brady being, just saying the right things, saying things that he doesn't really believe, but he's 100% right. The quarterback's a huge part of, the game day. Like it's not just. So he, it's almost like he's taking more, credit for like being a quarterback, which he deserves. He deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, I still say it's like 50-50. They both deserved equal credit, but it's pretty clear. A quarterback is a much bigger part of game day. The quarterback has to execute. The quarterback does have the ball in his hands, every single play. So I like that he said that.
Have a big opportunity to impact the game. So if you get good quarterback play. And that says nothing about that. I'm just talking in general about football.
Right.
You got an advantage if you play really good defense.
Right, and you realize what he said because he didn't want people to think that he's taking a shot at Mac Jones. Like he's not saying Mac Jones isn't giving him bad quarterback play, but he's just trying to stay independent. He's not really trying to criticize Mac Jones, but that's the reason why he just said that.
Defense, you got a great advantage. That means you need a good defensive coordinator. Ultimately, it's a lot of things coming together why things work and why they don't.
Yeah, so very interesting. I want to get your thoughts. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. What's your thoughts? Like, do you think that there was any resentment? Obviously, there was some resentment, between Brady and Belichick. Your thoughts on Brady's opinions on today's game? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think that the game is? I heard the game is soft, but I still feel like you got to protect, players. Like obviously, the rules were in place to protect Brady because we want to see Brady on the field. We don't want to see, we just saw Joe Burrow go out. And we saw, Lamar. We saw like certain players already hurt, like Deshaun Jackson. The point of the game, like Aaron Rodgers, for example, like the whole point is to keep these players on the field. So I want to get your thoughts and opinions, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.